continuing our conversation on fantasy tropes, we covered in the first video common tropes being the chosen one, the Dark Lord, and the quest. So the next three we have is a medieval setting, damsel in distress, and the mentor. So a medieval setting is kind of that fantasy trope that you really don't think about because it's related to setting. But a lot of fantasies kind of happen within this kind of medieval setting. It is one of the most common settings for fantasy. So a lot of the inspiration for these fantasy world builds kind of pulls from medieval culture. So you usually have castles and knights and mythical creatures such as dragons. For some examples there, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a fantasy. It's very much a game of houses with castles and lands and knights, and dragons. So it very much pulls its inspiration from, medieval setting. Any of the Robin Hoods, I don't care which movie rendition, they're all set in medieval times. The Witcher has this air of medieval feel to it, with fantasy elements throughout, a source of magic, but still, castles and lands and kings and whatnot. Anything Arthurian, King Arthur, all of that is definitely fantasy set in a medieval setting. A funny one, Army of Darkness. You want to go that way. That is considered a fantasy, but its setting is medieval. And it just kind of got a weird, quirky story to it. So if you're looking to twist a medieval story, have a chainsaw wielding shotgun madman from the future drop into a medieval setting, and that can work. The damsel in distress. While this is in modern age a little bit of an outdated trope, it's definitely changed over time. The damsel in distress often involves a character, which is usually a female character who is in some great peril and she has to be rescued by her hero or her Prince Charming. You do still see these out there, such as, Enchanted. That movie kind of follows that particular trope, the damsel in distress. Anymore, we like to see the female protagonist rescue herself or even come to the aid of, a fellow male character. So a lot of these stories kind of go back to old social protocols. So you oftentimes see this trope specifically in books and movies like Rapunzel or Snow White or Sleeping Beauty and even The Princess Bride. These are a few examples of this classic damsel in distress. It does work, but it is nice to have a little bit of a modern twist on it, if you will, if you're going to use the damsel in distress trope. The last one on the list of the most common is the mentor. The mentor trope basically introduces a wise and experienced character who guides the protagonist on their journey. This seems to be a common underlying theme in a lot of fantasy stories. Star Wars, you have Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is teaching Anakin. Even Yoda teaches Anakin. So he actually has several wiser mentors helping and guiding him along the way. You have Hunger Games. Haymitch tries to kind of guide Katniss through the Hunger Games because he's been in her shoes before, and so he tries to help her along the way. The Wheel of Time, you have Moraine trying to coach Rand on how he should proceed, how he should manage certain monarchs, how he needs to manage his fight against the Dark One. Let's see. We also have Shadow and Bone. So you have the Darkling, who is basically taking under his wing. I can't remember her name. Is it Elena? Regardless, I can't remember her name, but he kind of takes her under the his wing. We later find out he's kind of the antagonist of the story, but he does serve the mentor role for at least the beginning part of the story. And then, of course, we have Harry Potter, Professor Dumbledore. Any of his teachers really are a positive influence in guiding him through this difficult task. So those are the last three of the common tropes. Again, if you're writing, find ways to twist it a little bit, make the story different. Again, these are tried and true tropes, so it's hard to completely throw them all out the window, but to look at them from maybe a fresh perspective, and find a way to do it differently than those before can really have a lasting impact on your reader, because it's something familiar, yet you made it different. And so it's unique, and it kind of tends to stick in the reader's mind. So just some food for thought whenever you're thinking about story and plot.